All right, guys, so we are here for another episode of the Extra Mile podcast, and we have an awesome guest here today, Steph Preece, who has rocked and rolled with an awesome business over the last couple of years, has some tips and tricks for you all to implement into your business. Stay tuned.
Your success is on the other side of your comfort zone. See, that's the difference between me and those other guys. I wanted it more than they did. I wanted it enough to get uncomfortable. I wanted it enough to go the extra mile. Do you want it bad enough? Do you want it bad enough to go the extra mile?
All right, so Steph, we are here for an episode of the Extra Mile podcast where we discuss all the challenges that we see in entrepreneurship and in business. And then we also want to leave our guests with tips and tricks so that they can implement into their business to help grow. So first and foremost, what I'd like you to do is give us a little intro, a brief little intro as to who you are, what you do, and
all that good stuff.
We'll dive deep.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm Stephanie Preece, and I own Ignite Fitness Kickboxing. I've had Ignite Fitness Kickboxing for about 2 years, 2.5 years actually, and we get the opportunity to help people change their lives, absolutely transform their lives, more so from a mindset than from a kickboxing set. But we get to use all of it. And before that, I had spent a significant amount of my life in the public accounting industry as well as the private industry. So lots of business background. And then one day I just decided to jump. So that's Steph in a nutshell.
Awesome. She said, I just decided to jump. Like that wasn't like super courageous, but we're going to talk about that in a second. It's so cool to watch what's happened with your business because, you know, there are people that I care about all around me that have been through your program and have like literally transformed their lives. And I'll only shout her out because I know she wouldn't mind, but Jen Allen, who was in one of my mastery classes a few years ago. And I love Jen, but it's just so awesome. Like you said, not just your physical, but your mindset and how that changes. And if you could, like, let's chat about that a little bit. Not just like what you've seen, but maybe some advice to people who are dealing with mindset issues and maybe are dealing with a place of complacency or comfortability and how they can step out of that and into a place of growth.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So what we find the most is that the level of comfortability comes from the people that you surround yourself with. And that's a really, really hard, it's a really hard thing to deal with, right? Because when you think about where it is that you want to head in life, if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are of the same mindset, it's really, really, really difficult to get to the other side of it, you know? So I think that one of the biggest things that I found is whenever you surround yourself with people, they have to be moving towards the same goal. And it's not about the fitness piece, right? Like it's not about the fitness piece. It's about really understanding that the people that you're around or that are around you, they may want to see it on the bus, but it doesn't mean that they want to see you get to the destination. You know?
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, because like those people are, you know, you can't bounce ideas off of the people that aren't trying to grow and challenge themselves and have a level of comfortability themselves, you know? Right. So I totally understand that. What is it? You are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah.
And if if you're that guy and you're looking around and wondering why, you can reflect and know real quick what you need to do. So
yeah. It's interesting that, I hate to use the word toxic because that's such an overused word, but really look at the relationships that you're in. And if they aren't contributing back to you with the same amount of reciprocity, you have to really evaluate that and make certain that it's the right fit for you. And if not, it's okay.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I experienced that. I know tons of people that have been on the show have experienced that. And when you remove that from your life, you can catapult in the right direction. So talk about that for you. Like, was there, obviously you've made some changes in your life with your business, your career and things like that. But was there a moment for you, and you don't have to go into details as to who, but was there a moment for you in your journey where once you were surrounding yourself with the right people, your life kind of just took off?
Yeah. And I don't mind getting into details. I won't get into a ton of them.
Yeah.
But I was in a relationship, and that relationship was one where the person that I had chosen to be with wanted me to fill a certain role and didn't allow me to be the person that I was. And I say allow, right? It's an ugly word to say that someone allows you to do something, but that's the mindset that I was in, is that I was allowed to be a certain person. And, you know, that wasn't who I was. Whenever I left that relationship and really actualized who I was and what I wanted to be, that's when everything changed. But you have to be able to identify it, and you have to be able to say, look, this is not healthy for me, why it's not healthy for me. And that's a lot. It's a lot. But when you do it, man, you just grow so much.
Yeah, and that's tough, especially when it's somebody so close to you, right? Like when we talk about this, oftentimes I think people are like, "Oh yeah, the guy that, you know, is in my is in my shift, and you know, he's a little negative. I shouldn't hang out with him." No, we're not talking about that guy. We're talking about the people close to you. Like,
Right.
you know, it's funny because Gary Vee talks about like, you know, we got to stop caring what people think, and when he does that, he usually uses this reference of, you know, everyone from Sally Pants 83 on social media who's your hater to your mom, right? And so the same thing applies to the people that are around us that are negative minded, who have toxic thoughts and are, you know, kind of just keeping us down. There's a saying about like, what is it? Crabs in a barrel? Is it? Yeah. Crabs in a barrel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when you're trying to get out and they like pull you back down. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're the only one in the barrel, if you're only crab in the barrel, you have more likely of a chance to get out than when there's a bunch of them in there. Yeah, that's crazy.
Totally.
So let's get into your journey. We want to talk specifically about how you took this jump and this leap of faith, like of leaving corporate world and starting your own business. Let's talk about where like the vision and the idea originated first, and then how that progressed into reality.
So it's interesting. I, like I said, I had been in the private and the public accounting industry for years, and I had always found that I was searching for something while I was there. So I was constantly working in nonprofit organizations. I built a couple of, you know, pretty successful nonprofit in this particular area. And that was where I found the most fulfilling part of my life, was being able to help people. And there was never, I need to help them this way. I just wanted to help however I could. And so it didn't matter if it was, you know, this child in need or, you know, this particular person there. I just wanted to make the world a little bit better. Didn't have to be huge leaps and bounds, just a little bit better. And I felt really unfulfilled whenever I would go and do my accounting job, right? Like I just wasn't a number cruncher. And I did it, and I did it for 15 years, and I worked for some really great companies. But what I found is I still wanted more. I wanted to be able to give back on a bigger level.
Right.
And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. And but what I knew is I could not continue doing what I did anymore. I just couldn't. It was breaking me, like, as a person. And one day I came home and I said to my husband, I cannot do this anymore. I'm done. And it took alcohol to get me there. And I mean, there was a lot of bad periods for me before the time that I left my final career. And I actually decided to do this. I mean, it was bad. You know, there was a point where he's like, you might be an alcoholic, you know, like,
right, yeah.
Like there's a problem. But he supported me the whole time. And when I said, I am out, I cannot do this anymore. There is something bigger out there.
Right.
He said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, but it's going to happen. And I know that it's going to happen.
I like that. That's awesome. So where did the idea itself come from? Like, where did you, like, you know, because people, I think there's tons of people that are in corporate world that are just, you know, I don't know, I don't want to say miserable until maybe they realize how happy they can be later. But at the moment, they might not realize how miserable they are. They're just, you know, in a routine, and they're doing the same thing every single day with the hopes that one day they'll do something different. But that one day is so far off and so, you know, not possible right now. So where did you come up with the idea? Where did you start to strategize? Or did you just like leap and say, I'm going to figure it out later?
So I leapt and I figured it out later.
Okay.
And I knew, so I always had a love for martial arts. I mean, I'd been training for 10 years. I was a 3rd-degree black belt. And that was a big part of our lives. My husband obviously has a karate school. And so that was a big part of our life. And we had raised our family in that, which was amazing because we had this common interest together, right? We had this thing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And what I knew is I knew that there were women who were just like me, who had struggled, right? Who had sacrificed every single day, because the last person that we take care of are ourselves. And I say women, that's husbands and partners. We all do. The very first thing that we do is we take care of our family first, and then we take care of our partner, probably second, and then we take care of our business, and then we take care of ourselves. So we always get these scraps. And I realized that if I felt like that, and I was always getting the scraps, and that there had to be other people out there that were just getting the scraps too. And I realized that kickboxing could be the conduit. The conduit of helping people, it didn't matter what the conduit was.
100%.
I just wanted to help.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started. Patrick had this small, tiny little kickboxing program. There were like 5 people in it, the women who would sit on the side of the karate school and watch. And I said, let me take your kickboxing program, because I really think that I can not just help the people here at Kaizen. I think I can help people on a greater scale in our area really find themselves again, because we just lose ourselves, right? You get into that 30-ish age and you completely lose who you are as a person because of your commitments to everybody else. So I said, let me take it and let me go. And he said, I trust you.
That's so awesome. It's so funny the way that you use the reference of conduit. I always use the word vehicle, because I use roofing, right? Because the same thing. Like, I had this desire to help people. I've never done a roof in my life, but at least you've kicked some ass in your life. At least you have that, you know? So for me, I was like, okay, I want to help people. So I'm going to use roofing as my vehicle to get, you know, this help out there. Like, I'm going to put this in place. And so I truly understood what you were talking about there. And I think it is really cool, because you're right. I think that especially women as mothers and wives, and they get in this place of helping others, right? It's so natural, because with children, you want to help them and you forget to put yourself first where you should be. And so I love that whole model. I love what you've done. And like I said before we started rolling, I love what you've done for so many people that I care about. So that's like the cool connection, is like that you're really truly doing for others. And I think that that's a commonality among entrepreneurs, at least, that, you know, that people do have that servant mentality to a certain degree, that they want to help. So let's talk about how you started to implement your business. You know, obviously people know how to file forms and LLCs and stuff like that.
Some people do.
Yeah. Well, if you don't, there are people that will do that for you.
Find them. They are the most valuable asset you'll ever have.
Yeah. But I want to get into more strategy, like how to build a business. And so what were some key things along the way that you think like would really bring value to our listeners who are trying to grow businesses or need to be aware of this as they start to grow a business?
Sure. I think that's a great, another great question. Gosh, you're just full of them.
I better be good at something over here.
So I think that for me, the biggest piece of it was identifying who it is that I wanted to work with, right? Like, you have to understand who it is that you want to work with, regardless, to be able to get there. Because if you don't understand who it is that you want to work with, you're never, ever going to be able to find what they truly need, because it's not about you, right? And being an entrepreneur, because, like, let's be honest, entrepreneurs are like, we're self-starters or self-motivators. And sometimes you can get lost in yourself.
Yeah.
You have to remember it's not about you. It's about what they need and what they desire. So if you identify that piece very early on, the rest of the things fall into place. I truly believe that don't be cute, execute, right? Like, I very much believe that. And I think that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? There are so many successful people out there. I'm not saying go and copy it. What I'm saying is utilize the resources that you have available, right? Find someone who is doing what you're doing and then is super successful, right? We read books, we follow what the books say. Find someone who's super successful and recreate what they're doing. Huge.
Right. Yeah, too many people have done this before us, for us to sit here and bump our heads the whole way, right?
Let go of your ego, Matt. Like, you know, and that for an entrepreneur is really hard, right? Because we're self-starters, we're motivated. I can do this. If you think that you can build a business from nothing, then you obviously have an ego.
Right.
You just do.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And we love that part. We love that confidence, by the way.
Yeah. You just have to separate that piece out and recognize that, you know, you're not always the smartest person in the room, and it's best to be not the smartest person in the room.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
That's the way to learn.
Yeah, that's how you know you're in the right room, right? Is
exactly.
It not? Yeah.
When you're not the smartest person in the room.
So you brought up something very, very great that I want to go into specifics on, because you talked about how you wanted to be specific about the person that you wanted to help. Yeah. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that? Like, how detailed did you get? And so again, because I recommend to our listeners that, you know, you want to be as specific with this avatar as you possibly can be, so that you can be easier to refer. Like, people are going to refer you easier when they know that, hey, oh, that's the person that, you know, Bobby wants to work with, or that's the person that Steph wants to work with. Let's talk about that a little bit. Sure. And how much that was a benefit to you and your business.
Yeah, it was very specific in the beginning. It has, over time, it has evolved. But in the beginning, it was very specific. And I can tell you that I wanted myself. I wanted to work with people that were like me. I wanted to work with people that were coachable. I wanted to work with people that were within a certain age range. And I wanted to work with people who were willing to commit to themselves. So it was really specific. I had an age range. I knew that they were female. I knew that they were people who had sacrificed and needed to find themselves again. I knew exactly the people that I wanted to work with. And, hesitate to say the words like target or demographic. But I mean, that's when you look at your avatar,
Absolutely.
You need to understand the demographic. Even from a, circumference of where my location was going to be, exactly how far out I was willing to work with people from.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with us targeting our ideal clients either, right? I feel like we absolutely owe that to them, really, right?
Sure.
Let's face it. Like I'm going to bring up a bizarre example, as I always do, right, Chris? Like Cupid, right? Cupid doesn't target people to hurt them. He's targeting them to help them, right? So the same thing, it's just because there's a target doesn't mean that you're targeted to be hurt. You could be targeted to be helped. Yeah. And I think that you providing that very specific avatar for your business and for your client, that helped you so much because, it made you a specialist.
Yes.
Nobody wants a general practitioner of anything, right? We want specialists, somebody that is going to focus on this particular thing and fix it, And I think that was huge. So when you brought that up, I was like, let's dive a little bit deeper on that. Yeah. But let's get into okay, so we had that all figured out. Where were some challenges along the way that you were able to overcome? And, for the people that are going to see those challenges, we want them to be prepared for them as much as we possibly can. So let's talk about some of the biggest challenges of growing the business and what those were.
You will break. Your business will break.
Yeah.
It will break. And it will break in as you grow, depending on how rapidly that you grow. Mm-hmm. Your business will break at the 1s and the 3s. So 100,000, it will break. 300, it will break. 1 million, it will break. 3 million, it will break. And I say that it will break simply because of the infrastructure, right? You have a certain amount of infrastructure whenever you're an entrepreneur and you're growing your business, and you're only, as entrepreneurs, right? We don't know that we're going to be at 300,000. Mm-hmm. We don't know how quickly that's going to come.
And we've never been there.
Yeah. And while you can, don't be cute, execute and borrow other people's things, you don't have exactly a roadmap when you're an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. You're just kind of doing it on your own. So you go those 1s and 3s, and that's when you have to go back and almost backfill. So I think for me, I'm very much a jumper. I have it tattooed on my body. Jump. Yep.
Me too. I'm like, look, we're gonna figure this out later. I'm gonna build wings on the way down off this cliff. Yeah.
It's funny, my operations manager this weekend, we did a thing where we jumped for our whole company, and she said, okay, I'm going to get a tattoo that says learning to jump because that's how you grow, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to do. So I would say recognizing that there are going to be times where your company growth outpaces the infrastructure, and it's okay, right? Backfill. Just go back and do the boring work. And that's something, processes and structures and procedures, those are systems, right? Those are all really important to have. If you have enough foresight or forethought, then you can take those and you can level them up. But oftentimes as an entrepreneur, right, you're doing all the things. Mm-hmm. So when we first started, we had 40 people in our first challenge, and I was running everything soup to nuts, all the sessions by myself. I was running all their nutrition, all their accountability. I was doing all new sales.
Yeah, I was going to say selling everything too, right?
I was selling everything. Yeah. And 40 people, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you reach out to 40 people every single day to make certain that they're getting to their goals, right? When you make that commitment to them, it's a lot of people.
40 phone calls a day anymore.
And then, I know, yeah, no more. But that's where, those are some real challenges. Know that you are going to work hard and be grateful for that.
Yeah.
Be grateful that you get to work hard.
Yeah, those systems and processes are really important. That's what can, but in the beginning, we're like sell. Yes. And so the systems and processes that can creep up on you, and the need for them can creep up on you, and it can be too late in some instances, or it can be to the point where you might have to slow things down to implement and therefore catch back up. So
that's that boring work. I'm not a fan of the boring work.
No, me neither. I got
an
somebody that does that.
Manager that does it now. Yeah, I'm like, can you make sure this is done? No, I'm a jam girl, and she handles it.
Oh, shit. Yeah, just got to that point where I've got somebody in there taking care of everything, and it helps a lot. So you had mentioned, I can't help but think of this kind of stuff, and this is just my mind going crazy. There was a movie with Ben Affleck, right? What wasn't it called? The Accountant?
Oh, yeah.
Right, where he was like an assassin. That's all I could imagine when you were talking about being like this kick-ass martial arts person and an accountant in the corporate world
I'm really
at the same
an
time.
assassin. No one knows, though.
Yeah. Now let's talk about that though, because you talked about delegating and putting systems in place as you built your business. Were you able to let go of like the accounting payroll stuff? Because you know that was something that was so close to you.
I love that you said that. So I am just now doing it.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, that we are in the process of just now transitioning all of that out of house. It was really hard though, because I had done it for 15 years of my career.
That's what I could imagine.
And letting go. And of course you want it to be a certain way. Just like, you know, it's hard to delegate. Just even with accountability, it's hard to delegate, right?
Yeah.
Because you want it. Everyone will, if you create the right culture, right? Everyone will rise to that culture. But it's still really hard when it's your baby to delegate that stuff out, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, you just want to make sure it's done the right way, like, every single time. And you can beat yourself up, but you can't beat anybody else up, right?
Yeah. Well, you can. You're not allowed to,
Not
but you
yet.
can. All right, so let's talk about that, because that was really great. I love the fact that you're like, okay, you have this version of how this should be done, right? So like you're like, okay, nobody's gonna do it the right way. But what's so interesting is like, to whose definition of right?
Who's right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you might not be doing it the definition of somebody else's right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something as entrepreneurs and for the people listening, understand that as we delegate, there are going to be differences in the way you do things versus the way other people are doing things, and embrace that.
Yeah.
Okay. Embrace that. You want to get them as close as you possibly can to the way that you would do it and the way that you want it to be done, but it will never be exactly that way. So please, guys, understand that, and don't let it stop you from growing, because a lot of people do. A lot of people stop. But all right, I'm going to go back because you mentioned culture.
Yeah.
And I think that you have done a phenomenal job of building a culture. When I see the Ignite logo, I don't even think of the brand at all. I just think of like what I hear about your company, what I hear from the people that have changed their lives through it, and this almost... this probably this almost cult-like but right, cult is in culture, by the way. So
Hashtag
I learned
cult, not cult.
that. Yeah, I learned that recently. Cult is in culture. No,
Yeah.
but seriously, it's amazing to see the community that you've built, and like you have true like teams and true followers that are there to be a part of your community. And I think that that's huge. So talk about how you implemented that, not just with your clients, but with your team.
So I think it's really important. Ignite is a version of myself. And early on, I wanted it to be a space where humans could come to be a better version of themselves. And in order to do that, we needed to make certain that it was supportive, that people, you know, any negative people, I mean, I've had to fire clients before. I've absolutely had to fire clients.
Yeah.
It's just not, we have to have an environment where people are able to get better every single day. And knowing that they can come to a safe place and they can leave all their shit on the mat and no one is going to judge them. I mean, those are, you know, our values. I mean, one of our values is judge free. Another one, you know, I mean, like, and I just drive those home, and I won't accept less than that from anyone, whether you're a boxer on the mat or you're a coach. And it's not in a bad way, but they've grown up in, and I say grown up in 2.5 years. That's very assumptive of me, isn't it? Presumptive of me. But you know what I mean? Like it has just been, I won't accept less than that. I will always ask you for more than what you may think that you can give, because you can. And I ask that of every single coach. I ask that of every single, you know, team member that we have. And I will ask that of every single boxer. And the reason is because you will always, people will sacrifice themselves always, but they won't ever let you down, another person down, right? And if I ask someone to just step in a little bit harder or a little bit deeper or dig a little bit more, they always do. And because of that, every team member is the same way. I do have to say this. People are always like, oh my gosh, what you have created, Steph. And I go back to, they built it.
Right.
They did. Man, those boxers, they come in. I can tell, if there's anyone who walks in the door that's new, people immediately run over to be like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Hey, I'm so-and-so. Can I help you? What do you need? And that's not me, that's because they truly just want to be a little bit better every day. And they know that if they can help somebody else be a little bit better, like that's it. Right?
Yeah.
That's it. And that's big enough.
That's huge. I love that. Like basically you helped navigate a team that developed a culture.
Yeah.
So it's not
It
like
wasn't me.
Steph's like, hey, this is how everything's going to be. Just do it. It was the community creating it itself.
They did.
Yeah.
They completely created themselves.
That's
and I
so
say that,
cool.
I remind them of that. I'm like, you created the Ignite that we are today. I opened the doors. I gave you a safe place to come where I wouldn't judge you, and you made it what it is today. They absolutely have, each one of them have contributed to making it what it is today.
I love that. That's awesome.
I'm super grateful for them.
Now let's talk about that though. How you developed team members, how you found people as you grew your business, and how that part played out. Because I know a lot of people as they're starting their businesses have a hard time, like you said, delegating, but not even delegating, right? How do I even get somebody in position to delegate to?
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit and how that worked for you, and maybe our listeners can take something away from that too to help them grow their businesses.
So my industry is pretty niche, right? You can't just go and pluck a kickboxing person off the street in Dover,
Right?
Delaware.
Sure.
It
What?
doesn't. I know.
You sure?
There's not many of them out there. So fortunately for me, I was able pretty early on to find people who, in my gym, I kind of grew them. And they started out with me just as boxers. And I say just as boxers. They started out with me as boxers.
Yeah.
And then they eventually transitioned into a coaching role. Operation.
If you don't mind me interrupting,
Sure.
how did those conversations happen, and was it surprising for you? Like, did it surprise you at all how willing some of those people were willing to be a part of your leadership? And
Yeah, absolutely. I work with a consultant, and that's the other thing. As an entrepreneur, find the right person to work with. Find a consultant who will help you, who knows the industry, right? Like, find somebody if you can partner with them. Find groups that you can be in, the people who can help you. But yeah, it was one of the first things that my consultant said to me is, why is it that you think you have to do everything? There are people that are on your mat that want to help you, and you just haven't asked the question. So reach out to those people who bleed what it is that you do, and just give them the opportunity. Because every time you can say no to something, you give somebody else the opportunity to say yes. And that's what I did. I would say, no, I can't do this. And I would reach out and say, are you, will you, can you? And they were always like, absolutely, yes, of course, of course.
yeah, I think that's a testament to the culture that that was developed there, again, from you and the community and the clients, the team, everything. So that's awesome.
I appreciate that.
So one of the things that we do on the Extra Mile is we always ask our guests to talk about a specific instance. This can be before Ignite. This could be in your personal life. This could be in your career as an accountant at the time. But just a specific instance where, going above and beyond, going the extra mile in something really, really paid out for you, and where you really felt like you took whatever was the norm and just, went way above it, and how it played out for you.
So I love that you said that. And I'm gonna take it real broad. One of the things that we always talk about as a team and at Ignite is about over delivering. Always. I mean, it is a focus. It's not a value of what we do, but it is bred. It is like we woven into the culture of what we do. And it is about, it is what Ignite is based on. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. Like, my responsibility is to always over deliver, right? I don't ever want anyone to walk out of that place or come off of a call with me where they didn't have 100% or 150% of who I am in that moment. And I ask for the same thing from every other person. And I would, if you asked the general population, like, what is it that Ignite does that separates them? They would say it's they over deliver on everything. And I don't say that in like, ooh, we over deliver on everything. It's very much bred into who we are.
Yeah.
Like, we want every single thing to be right for them.
Right.
So I don't think that really answers your question.
No, it does. It does, because I
It's
think
much
that
broader.
what you're saying is like, basically every client that comes in there, they better not leave with exactly what they expected to leave with, right? They need to leave with far more than what they expected. And whatever they're paying, I need to be making sure I'm delivering far more in value than what they're paying in monetary contribution. So I love that. All right. So we're gonna take a few minutes here, and we're gonna just discuss, where where you can, you think you can add the most value to our listeners in way of, it could be time management, it could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be anything like that. Where do you think that you could give the most advice to our listeners on their journey to where you are?
So I think it's a time management is probably the bigger piece of it, because as entrepreneurs, you're always going to be overextended. Get a planner, get a hard copy planner, and keep a list. So get a hard copy planner that has your day separated, literally by the half hour. I wake up every morning at 4:00, regardless if I have a boxing session to coach or if I don't, because the hours between 4:00 and 9:00, those are the hours that no one else is up and moving, right? Can you imagine as an entrepreneur, the amount of things that you can get done in 5 hours before the world starts moving? It is amazing. And then that leaves you with the rest of the day to be able to take care of people or to take care of the mundane tasks. So I would always say, be one of those people who takes advantage of the time when the world is not turning to really, really try to execute on strategies. And then the rest of your day really block out. So I have a little notebook, and in that notebook, anything that needs to be done goes in that notebook. And I sit down with my calendar on a weekly basis and I say, these are my times that I'm already allocated to be with other people or have commitments to other people. And these are my free spaces of time. And then I look and I say, okay, where is it that my family fits in? And I have 2 to 3 goals of family, and I've fit my family in. And once I fit my family in, I evaluate the time space that's available at that point. And I say, how am I going to handle self-care? That's the next piece of it. These are the times that I'm going to work out. Then the final piece of it is, what business goals do I want to accomplish? And don't forget, I've still got this little notebook over here. So as stuff keeps cropping up, I'm still adding into that notebook. And then I go over and I look in that notebook and I say, okay, what are my, the big hairy things I'm going to deal with this way? And those are this week. And I plug those in. So that's how I make certain that I'm constantly attacking goals every single week for my business. And I'm, stripping away at that notebook and ripping those pieces out. But it's also, as an entrepreneur, just like as a mom or a dad or, a partner, you're going to sacrifice things. If you make a conscious choice, a cognizant decision that you have family time, that you have self-care time, and that you have business time, that's how you're going to be able to beat the burnout. Mm-hmm. Because being an entrepreneur in the beginning, when you're lifting your business, it's burnout, man. And you can either be one of those who figures out the way to manage it, or you can burn out.
Mm. Yeah, it takes a lot of sacrifice, and there's all the sayings out there where you live now how others won't, so you can live later how others can't. But let's talk about so you set aside time for your family, which I love. Now, communicating the expectations of, hey, I'm building a business right now with your loved one, your significant other, your family. How do those conversations play out, and how important is it for our listeners to make sure that they set the right expectations with the people that they care about as they're growing their business?
Yeah, so it's really important, right? We talked earlier about surrounding yourself with the people who are always going to lift you up and help you get to where you want to go and be in the same mindset that you are. It's the same thing with your family, and letting them know what your commitment to your business is and what that level of commitment is. It only garners inordinate amounts of support, right? I have a 17-year-old who works in our business. She's one of the best coaches that I have on the mat. And she's respected by 40-year-old women just as equally as she is our teen program. My 14-year-old son's super, super busy, but he'll be the first one to be like, all right, mom, let me get the protein to the gym for you. Let me load the truck up. So I think it's just really important. My husband, he's always been supportive. He's the one who was like, you go be you, and I'll be here, and I'll take, back seat. And, you do this thing, because if anybody can do it, you can do it. So I think that that's super important, but communicating to them that, sacrificing them is not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And really saying I love you, but I need your support in this. And they just get on board.
Yeah.
And especially when they see what you're building and that it comes from, it comes from the heart, and that it makes you happy. And if they don't love that, then get rid of them.
That's right. That's right.
Get rid of them. Cut them loose. If they can't support you and love you for all that, cut them loose. I know. I probably shouldn't say that.
No, you're right. And that's why I said it earlier. Sometimes the closest people to you.
Yep.
And I don't mean your closest friend. I mean your closest family members, your spouses. They can all be that. I think everybody that's listening, especially men, take some notes there on how to be secure as a man and support your woman as she's growing her business, because that's not the common place of a man, being that secure. A lot of times it doesn't work out, but we'll save that conversation for another day, guys, because that's a whole...
You can bring Patrick in for that.
Yeah, that's a whole session right there.
It is.
I think it's very important, though. We will cover some series where we discuss that, because, as you know, like we've seen, bumps and bruises in entrepreneurship, and we're not the only ones seeing it. Our spouses are along for that ride, and we have to make sure that we're communicating properly, setting the right expectations, so that we're either getting bumped and bruised together, or they're there to provide aid when we get those bumps and bruises.
Yeah, and Patrick has his own business, so I can tell you, him stepping back and saying, "You go do this Ignite thing that you're doing because you're crushing it." You can imagine whenever one's business grows at such an accelerated pace, particularly for a guy to be able to step back and be like, I will let you shine. I mean, that's hard.
Oh, yeah.
I give him so much credit in the world for stepping aside and taking a back seat, because his business absolutely took a back seat so I could do this.
Yeah. But like I said, it just takes absolute security. Like when you're insecure and you have to prove to people, when you don't have to prove anything to people, you can do powerful stuff like that, and that's just such a great place to be, so it's awesome. It's great to watch. As a neighbor, as a friend, and as somebody who's seen this whole thing kind of taking place and taking shape. It's been really awesome. So we want to make sure that our listeners can also connect with you, social media, websites, whatever. Let's make sure that we go over those different links real quick, so that Chris will get that information from you too, so we can put it up on the screen. But for the people that are listening, can you make sure that you give it clearly so that they can hear it too? So.
Absolutely. So Instagram is Ignite-Kickboxing, and our Facebook page is Ignite Fitness Kickboxing. We have some private groups out there. We have a Fit, Free, and Fabulous by Steph Preece. So join that group if you're looking just for some, basic help and all that good stuff. And then our website is www.ignitefitnesskickboxing.com.
Awesome. Pretty clean and clear. Well, Steph, it's been awesome having you on the show. I think,
thank you.
You really provided a lot of stuff that our listeners can implement right away, that they can use, which is huge, because we don't want to just entertain, right? We don't want to tell inspiring stories about how what you did. We want to talk about how you did it so that they can implement that as well. So thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for listening or watching the episode of Extra Mile Podcast. If you guys could, please rate and review the podcast, and make sure to subscribe so that you guys can check out our next episode. We promise to continue to bring these awesome level guests so that you guys can grow your businesses. Thanks a lot, guys.
Your success is on the other side of your comfort zone. See, that's the difference between me and those other guys. I wanted it more than they did. I wanted it enough to get uncomfortable. I wanted it enough to go the extra mile. Do you want it bad enough? Do you want it bad enough to go the extra mile?